So the funny story is during the 40s and Blunts party was that we were so crowded. It was like this. So we couldn't even walk in the room.
Everyone was up there.
Yeah, everyone was there. So this guy comes to the front door and he's like, can I come to the party? And it was Jay-Z. Insane.
I didn't let him in.
We love Jay-Z. He used to come to our studio all the time.
Yeah. We made a thing that, listen, no one else is coming in. We
can't let anyone else in. And so he took it maybe a little too far.
Welcome to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast. I'm your host, Mike Squires. Today I'm joined by two friends. I'm joined by David Lotwin and Doug Grama, the creators of D&D Studios. D&D Studios was a music studio located on Manhattan's West Side. And I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Doug and David about how they got their start in the studio business and some of their education. We also talked DJ Premier and the 45 King, two of my producer influences. And I also spoke to them about the artists that recorded at D&D Studios, such as Biggie Smalls, Jay-Z, Nas, KRS-One, Fat Joe, Eminem, Nas, and so many more. They tell me some exclusive stories about what was going on at the studio around that time, all the way up until the studio's closing. Then I got to talk to David and Doug about what's next for them. So needless to say, this is going to be an amazing episode. You can support the Mike Squires and Friends podcast by hitting that little subscribe button if you're on YouTube, or hitting download and leaving a rating on your preferred podcast platform. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Mike Squires and Friends. David, Doug, welcome to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast.
Hey.
I appreciate you guys coming out today. How's everything been?
Good.
It's good. Beautiful. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I want to take it back to the beginning. How did you guys meet originally? I know you guys are childhood friends, but how did you guys meet?
How exactly we met?
I remember the first day we met.
See, he remembers. His memory's way better than mine.
Too many bong hits, but back in the day, it was 9th grade, believe it or not. And I remember we were in back of junior high school, and we were playing whatever, it was school time, it was playtime. And somehow I got introduced to him. It was like, that was the moment that I met you. It was 9th grade. And we met, and we were like, yeah, hey, what's up? You know, we kind of were like, friendly and all that. And maybe we hung out once or twice then. But really solidified it was. So that summer, we both go to sleepaway camp. And so we're in the Delaware River, and we all fall out of our canoes. And I fall out, I'm on the side of the river. And I'm looking at the river, and who do I see floating down the river? But none other than David from D&D, before D&D. So I go, now David, he had a little more hair back then, okay? But I saw him floating, his head was bopping up, and I go, Dave, I'm screaming his name. He's like, oh my God. I go, and that kind of like, there's something about that, you know what I mean? We talk about this often, like, how did that was the weirdest thing. And then after that, once we went into high school, we were partners and best friends, and we had our crew and, our LB crew, Lawrence Boys crew.
LBC,
right,
Lawrence Boys crew.
Yeah, and
we're all going out, actually going
still to this day.
Jet Game Sunday.
That's amazing.
7 of us, and on the 9th, like 20 of us are going out. Yeah, all guys we graduated.
All guys we graduated, and then we have a really solid group of friends that experimented in everything. So, forget about just partying and all that. We were cutting edge in music. Like when everyone was listening to disco and pop music, at the time, there was a thing called jazz fusion. And jazz fusion was like the ultimate in musicianship. Best players and cool music. And we somehow, through Dave and his influence, got really into it. And any type of really intense music, like Frank Zappa, or really progressive.
Return to Forever.
Return of Chick Corea, Stanley
Mahavishnu
Clark.
Orchestra,
all these amazing names, and that we look back at it now. And then we got back into rock and roll. Like we were like more into that, and then we're like, Well, Led Zeppelin, we love Led Zeppelin, of course, right? We love all that music that was coming out. We had the classic music coming out in those days. And even disco, and I love disco now. Now I go back and listen to, that shit is great, man. Yeah, I love it, But back then, we were anti-disco.
Yeah.
What was the...
Zappa, disco sucks.
Disco sucks. We used to have shirts, disco sucks. Because disco was the, what the normal people did. The hot girls and the guys with their little chains, the little Coke spoons and all that stuff, going to the clubs, and we just weren't into that. We were like going to Grateful Dead shows, and we were seeing like really amazing musicianship back in the day that just really doesn't. It exists. Obviously, you see it now on YouTube and you see it online. We didn't have that back then, So, yeah, that's how we kind of musically bonded, not realizing what the future held for us.
Yeah. And I actually got to see the Dead and Company recently, so I was really excited to, see
we saw the original.
I can't even imagine.
Jerry, and back in the day
dozens
when it was...
and dozens of times.
Yeah, we used to go all the time with the stories within that, threaded within that was...
I haven't seen him since Jerry died, though.
Yeah.
It's not neither have I.
Yeah. So part of your music education, so you were working at MNI, correct?
Right, before that, so then we went off to, we did our high school bid, right? And we went off to college. I went to Berklee School of Music. I was a guitar player, and I really felt like, I wanted to be like a musician. And it's really before anything in my mind about recording. I don't know anything about recording. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And Dave went off to...
Curry College, also in Boston.
Both of us in Boston. So we weren't too far away from each other. Yeah. We'd go and see each other every once in a while. But that was an incredible experience going to a music school and being surrounded by the top musicians in the world, young guys that ended up being some of the most famous, amazing players like Steve Vai and
Dave Rosenthal.
Wow. From Billy Joel, and Melissa Etheridge was across the hall from me. I mean, it was like pretty amazing time for us, and even then, no sign of D&D yet. The story it goes it goes on. We're living our lives. We're trying to figure out what we want to do from this college. He's at college. Things are going crazy over there. There's partying going on in schools, and I'm like studying music, and I'm realizing, wow, I don't think I could do this. I mean, I didn't have the rock. Back in the day, it was long hair, skinny, tall. I was opposite of everything.
Yeah.
But you were a great player.
I was a great player. I was a good player. I was not great. I was good, but it wasn't, but...
You weren't Steve Vai.
I was musical, right. I had Steve Vai. He was like down the hall from me. I'm like, this guy, where am I going with this,
Yeah.
And then my guitar teacher, who was a monster, Al DeFino, he didn't have 2 nickels to rub. I mean, I was like, where am I going with this? He's like teaching guitar. He's trying to find gigs. And he's amazing. He really reached that pinnacle where I was trying to get to. So there was no way that I was going to go that way. I had grander visions than that.
Too much ambition.
Yeah. So I left school. I think he was still in school. And I never forget, this is the beginning. This is the first seed of D&D. So it was a Monday night football. I was hanging out with Ian, in my house. We were probably doing bong hits and watching the football game, blowing out the window. Everything's fine, Mom. And Dave calls me. He goes, I got to get out of here. This sucks. Da, 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 da. I don't like this anymore. I want to find something to do with my life. And I'm like, wow, I just saw this commercial. Serious. This commercial for the Institute of Audio Research Recording School. I go, sounds kind of interesting. Want to sign up? He goes, yeah, let's do it. So that was it. We signed up for Institute of Audio Research to go to school together the following fall. And that's where it really started. That's really started where we're like, okay, we're going to get into this. We didn't know about D&D. It still wasn't talk about us opening a studio together or anything like that. But it was the beginning of it where we got into recording. And then now to bring you back to where you asked the question, I went to MNI Studios and did my internship over there.
Yeah.
And Dave went to Jamaica and did his internship with Peter Tosh and all these reggae greats. So you could tell him that.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. That was my next follow-up question. I know that you went to Jamaica, so how was that experience?
It was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. I mean, at that point, we were really into reggae and obviously Bob Marley. And to be able to go there and have that experience and immerse myself in the Rasta culture and And reggae music, was beyond measure. Loved it.
Yeah.
The great experience he had, man.
Yes.
It was very, very cool. I had a different type of experience. With me, I was like learning the technical aspects of it all. I was like working under a master engineer who we were recording jingles, and we recorded B.B. King record, which won a Grammy, Birthday Blues. And I recorded with, some amazing writers, and just learning how to really make records.
Yeah.
That was like where I really was taught how to do it. And it was M&I, thus, when we did come together, it was D&D.
Yeah, we thought of a bunch of names, and we went back to D&D.
So wait, can you tell me a little bit about the Bronx Connection then?
Yeah, well, that was. You want to start that, Dave?
That was the first spot. Somebody told us if you want to open a studio.
No. That was after. That was after. So
that was after once we went to Manhattan. Yes.
So what happened was, I'll tell you, I worked at MNI Studios, and this guy Donnie Fury,
Astro Fury,
he was an amazing guitar player. He jammed with Jimi Hendrix.
So that was his big claim.
As his tagline. But we loved him. We loved him, and he was with us for many years.
Love Donnie.
So I was sitting in the. Everything was surrounded by a joint. Okay, so just saying, there was a joint smoke at the time.
And
we were
Donnie
sitting in the office.
Best part of anyone.
It was in the office
of
MNI, and I'm like, damn, I want to take my bar mitzvah money and buy equipment. I had this money, and he goes, well, you should set it. I have a place in the Bronx.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's how that story came about. Donnie turned this on to Frank, I think his name was. And Tommy and all those guys, and they had this built recording studio there. It was built. It was right next to a cab station and a Carvel, and and we're like
by the Bronx Zoo.
And then we got over there and like, wow, look at this place. I mean, this is like we were young, we didn't know any, but it was a built studio.
Yeah.
So, but these guys were like, they were a little greasy, snaky guys, But Dave and I did our thing. We set up shop in the Bronx. And we go there every single day, and we try to get sessions, and it wasn't easy going, but sessions did come every once in a while.
The back of the Voice magazine, we have ads.
And penny savers.
That kind of, that was the vibe.
Yeah.
Well, who was doing the marketing? Like, who was putting in a lot of the work? You both were trying to figure it out?
We were doing
everything.
Ads. We were doing it was just me and him.
It was really back to the Village Voice, and, there's really not much beyond that. There was no, obviously no internet or marketing like that. But after about a year and a half, I went back to MNI, hanging out with them, of course, probably smoking a joint. And Mitch is like, you could find a studio. If you just call rehearsal studios in Manhattan, a lot of them have extra space. So we go in the Village Voice, which was really the Bible at the time.
Absolutely.
And it said AAA Sparkling Image Studios. AAA, he does that because it keeps him on top of the list.
That was
alphabetical,
yeah.
Right? So, Sparkling Image. And I called him up. He goes, yeah, we got a ton of space. Come on down. Ray Fulton. Right?
Yeah.
And we went down there, and he mapped out 1,000 square feet for us for Studio A. And he was a builder, or a master builder, this guy. So we made a deal with him, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Building walls and floating floors, and we had no idea.
3 layers of sheetrock.
Yeah, right. All of a sudden, we got 500 pieces of sheetrock here, and we're like 19 to 20 years old. We have no idea what we're doing here. But he helped us, get it together. In that sense, he was actually good because he knew what he was doing.
Yep.
And that's where it started, Studio A.
So, David, how do you think your experience in Jamaica affected the studios that you guys ran up here?
Huge.
Well, certainly we had a bit of a client base from Jamaica. So when they came in, whether it was Peter or we had, the Heptones up there, Augustus Pablo, we had a lot of reggae guys at the beginning because of my experience.
But the first one
was
a band that they brought all their gear and all their 2 inches. I was like, oh my God, look at this. The band was called Native.
Oh, of course.
That was the first, because
I lived with Native when I was in Jamaica. They were good friends and great guys. And
They were going to be the next big thing. They were like one of those groups that were being backed by all the reggae artists, and they brought drum kits and amps and like 42-inch tapes and that were recorded in like Jamaica. And all of a sudden, as a young engineer, I was like, oh shit, I got all these tapes. So when everyone would leave, I popped those 2 inches, Dave and I popped the 2 inches on the machine, and we'd be like, yo, let's mix this thing, man. Let's just, and learn every piece of gear and learn how everything really worked and really hone in our skills. It was,
Yeah, so then from that point, you're at the Bronx Connection studio, and then you guys moved to the Garment District, and that's where D&D
that was
is
it.
born.
So that's what we're talking about now. Once we hit the Garment District on 37th Street.
The reggae guys. That's
where it went. We didn't call any of our
320 West 37th Street.
We didn't call any of our chips in at the Bronx. That was really a training ground. That was like, that was like whatever came in, and we realized that it was not going to be long lasted there. It was just my car got stolen with my guitar in it. It was a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. So who were some of the first artists to or even hip hop artists to come into D&D Studios?
Killer Rock is the first one I remember as a hip hop.
Well, yeah. I mean, hip hop didn't come to us for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
We did not have hip hop for a long time. It was everything and anything we can get. The first recording artist at our studio through a D&D was this guy Jacques Laroque. Okay, he was a taxi driver, and he still owes us the money. He never really paid us.
It's just part of the game sometimes.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
It is so much a part of the game.
Yeah, it was too much, right? And that was our first, but for me, maybe what do you say, Tila Rock?
Rock, yeah.
He may have been like, and that was through Sleeping Bag.
That was through
because Sleeping Bag was down the block. But for me, the first time that I realized what even rap really was, because I was not in tune with it. I was very eclectic musically, but this group came in, and the Kings of Rap. They were young kids, and he starts putting records on a turntable and like starts taking a beat from them, like. And I'm like, what is he doing, this guy? And then all of a sudden he's scratching the record. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? I was like, okay, I'm gonna be open to this. I'm gonna, it's a session. I'm gonna be good. But it was challenging to get it, even to get the whole concept coming from a different, musical background. I wasn't from that. I wasn't brought up on that. So musically, it was a little left field. Obviously, I grew to absolutely adore and love it and respect it. I go, but it took some challenges for me at first. It wasn't just like we always welcomed everyone at the studio. I think that's part of why D&D was just a home run for us, because no matter what was happening in New York at the time, we welcomed it. And if it was, this is funny, I always say, when it was dance music, we wore our dance shirts. We went out, we had the little chains. When it was reggae, we're smoking Rasta sleeve smile, right? Whatever it was, whatever music came to us, that's what we were doing. And it was like we would just kind of transform into that.
Yeah, and I think that's what really made the studio special, too.
I think so. I mean, it was part of it, I mean, it's definitely part of, Dave and his the ability for him to just create relationships with these people also. I was kind of like, my head was like up my ass a little bit, like in the studio, and I go worry about this, and I'm teching, and I'm doing all that. But Dave was developing these amazing relationships outside, and it helped. We were actually, at the time, we didn't know, but we were a perfect partnership, at that moment.
David, do you have any advice to, like how you maintain these relationships and some, how, like, what do you think made your relationships with these artists so strong?
Well, you just gotta be yourself, just can't fake the funk and try to be someone you're not or put on airs, Like I said, we were like chameleons with the music, but within that, we were ourselves. We loved the music.
100%,
and it wasn't like we were just faking the funk to be dance guys, We
loved it. We were in. We loved it. We loved the guys. We loved the people who were doing it, right? The record. We were just, yeah. We're still friends to these days, really.
That's amazing. All these years later, my D&D family is so strong. From the engineers to the assistants to the clients.
Pre-hip-hop also.
Which is rare, Like, you don't see
those
that
guys are my family, man. It's amazing.
We see each other. It's like we hug each other. It's like, it's amazing,
No,
that
is amazing, too. I honestly, that might be, like, one of the greatest things, like, because it's like, not all friendships last, you know what I mean? So to have such a tight-knit community.
I have the same telephone number I've always had. You know what I mean? So so it's like I never changed it. I never escaped. I never, went away from it. Even, after we closed, many years later, and it was rough times, it was like, yeah, I'm still here. You call me anytime. Let's go.
Yeah. So at what point do you guys connect with DJ Premier?
It was through Lord Finesse.
Okay.
He came to do scratches on Return of the Funky Man.
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah. So once he came in and he listened to the room and, it just, and then him and I became really good friends. I mean, incredible. I speak to him, once a week to this day, at least.
No, that's amazing.
That's my brother and one of the greatest people on the planet.
Yeah.
Not just in hip hop, just people don't realize what that man does for people. He's just a wonderful guy, and we had a lot in common, and we just became really good friends. And
yeah, two freaks, two freakies.
Yeah, oh yeah. Cream and I got some stories. I toured with him in Gang Starr.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Just so blessed by DJ Premier.
Yeah, how was being on the road with him?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, can you tell me a little story or something from that time?
There's so many stories. I remember once we were in Holland and Guru disappeared. And, we're looking all over, and then we see him. He's coming down, and he has 2 bottles of champagne, and he's like, no one touch these bottles. I'm like, who's touching the bottles, bro? He's like, no, I drank these with Rakim. And he's like, Mom, he was just, he was so blown away by hanging out with Rakim. I was like, wow, look at Guru. Like, he's a fan too, and I have such a. And then he went into the bunk in the bus, and he like had the bottles with him. I'm like, how cool is that?
No, that is really cool.
I actually remember the first session Primo was there. So it was in Studio A, not Studio B, because
he took it over. I heard that.
Studio A was the other, not his studio. Studio B was his,
yeah,
right?
That's what I'm saying.
But this session, the first one was in Studio A.
Finesse.
He didn't have an engineer. So we gave him our assistant engineer,
Kieran,
Eddie Sancho.
Was Eddie?
It was Eddie, right?
That's the first
I never forget it. I just because I was looking at what Eddie was doing. Now I'm an engineer, right? And he was an assistant, and he was learning. He was still learning, and he was doing some things. I was like, I'm not going to say anything, but that is really wrong. That's what he's doing is really wrong.
Right.
I just remember like putting it, whatever he was doing, he was
told
doing.
Me after you didn't want to tell him in front of the client.
No, I would never do that. And it was like, I didn't even know, how big DJ Premier was really at that moment. It was just, it was a new client, and Dave said, "Oh, it's a big client. Let's he's got a deal on EMI." I remember that, and that's where him and Eddie met. And then obviously, after that, they went to Studio B, and they never left after that.
Yeah, they became a team, truly a team.
Yeah,
Eddie, Sancho, and Primo.
Yeah. Well, now in hindsight, how do you guys feel about the impact that D&D had on hip hop? I know that's a big question, but
it amazes me. Like all these years later, in a way, it's more prevalent and popular than it ever was.
Yeah,
it's such a great feeling, and the Universal Hip Hop Museum just hit us up, and the 50 years of hip hop, we've had such a great kind of resurgence, and we get a lot of flowers, and we feel very blessed by that and love it.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have stayed in the Bronx Connection. We could have done, 100 other kind of things and taxi drivers and made a living. But, we really did make an impact all these years later when you look back at it.
I actually thought we would never leave D&D. I would always drive in and go, say how blessed I was at the time. Like, wow, this is awesome. I get to go in, and what am I doing today? Oh, I'm making records today. I have a studio business. We had record deals, and everything was just the most beautiful, amazing thing. I never thought it would end over there. I really didn't.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you guys about some of the artists that came through the studio too, and maybe a story or memory you might have of when they popped in.
Sure.
I'd love to talk to you about Mobb Deep. I saw that Mobb Deep was there.
Yep.
Very young.
That
was their first record.
Wow.
And this is before the record didn't even pop. It was the next record that popped.
Right.
I mean, it was, they were coming for premiere, and they were so young. They were like kids, really young kids. And, the memories, that wasn't like, once that record was done, they kind of moved on and recorded elsewhere. Right, they never really.
Yeah, well, they came with Alchemist.
Right. Yeah, a little bit at the end. Right. Yeah. But for the most part, it was just that first of the record label. I forgot what label they were on or who the A&R person was, but it was always about, well, we got to get a joint from Premiere, and that's really where a lot of these groups started to come. You know? But Mobb Deep was, I remember just them being younger, and it was the same with Nas. I remember this young kid sitting in the lounge and probably smoking an L, and he was just waiting on Premiere because that was the big thing, waiting on Premiere.
And Nas recorded part of I Am at D&D, correct?
Yes.
That's insane. You know what I mean? Was he working with like Premiere on that or?
Probably.
Yeah, I know you guys had so many artists coming through.
I think that, really the only Nas records that recorded with us were with Premiere. Were there any other artists producers that brought him into us?
Yeah, I think it was.
I thought it was just, I think it was
I'm
just.
not exactly sure.
Yeah.
But I think there were.
Yeah.
Maybe Pete. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know KRS-One was there too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very integral part of our career was KRS-One.
I'd love to talk more about KRS-One.
Chris he was just a motivator, and obviously, the talent that would come. He just was to sit there and ideas would be flowing at him. And one night, Dave and I are in Studio B hanging out, which wasn't. I didn't hang out too much in there, but we were in there.
I hung out in there.
Yeah. I was in Studio A. So,
right.
but he, we were talking about music and I forgot what it was, and Chris goes, "You guys should do a record." Because Dave and I were we're dying to put out records. We were making records for everyone, but we really wanted to have a company and a label deal and a distribution. We wanted to look at a production company we had. We were trying to produce all this music. He goes, "You guys should do a record." And Dave and I were like, "Yeah, you win it?" He goes, "Yeah."
Yeah, we say you'll be part of it.
And
he
then,
goes, and then
Dave,
we go, okay.
Then Dave did his thing. Then Dave went out and threw the fishing line out there, and he reeled in this guy, Joey. Yes, I'm telling you.
Joey Carvello.
Joey Carvello.
Yeah.
The very famous, radio guy.
Big up to Joey.
Yeah, big up to Joe. And he reeled in Joey, and Joey reeled in Hosh from Arista Records. And we created this idea of known producers with new artists.
Yeah.
With a sprinkling
tracks.
of an all-star track.
I remember I was going to ask the D&D All-Stars.
So that's how the all-star track came. So we got KRS-One, we got Fat Joe, but we didn't even know who was going to be on the record at the time.
Yeah.
It was kind of like we created this party, the 40s and Blunts party, right? Yep. And
we kind of knew, but then
some guys jumped in.
Chris threw Mad Lion on.
Yeah.
So to start it off, he's like, "Let him go," which was
great.
So he was a bit of a surprise.
But. Yeah, but it was a great night because it was one of those nights where we had the brass at Arista came down. We couldn't get into the place. A very famous story there. Dave will follow up on that one. Primo gave out the story.
I just told on the last one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we had this party, and it was amazing. It was successful. And the front room, we had, Craig G, and we had the Lost Boys all freestyling, and it was just like an incredible night. It was the 40s and Blunts, so we had 40s, and we had Blunts, and people were just going crazy. And as I'm rolling a blunt, the president of Arista walks in, Roy Lott. I'm like, "Hi."
Yeah, it was an incredible night. Yeah. They weren't that thrilled that. The invitation, it was 40s and Blunts party, and it said Arista.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Guys, you got to check with legal, Yeah. We were new to it. We're like, "Oh, sorry," but nothing happened. It went off, and
that was great. It was
Herb was a lot different back then.
It was
certainly wasn't legal, and
But you guys know the vibe of the studio is so important.
Of course.
From my understanding, you guys had a vending machine, a blunt vending machine.
That's folklore. What we had was. It wasn't like rolled blunts. It was blunts that you could take in, and we
had rolling papers and blunts.
Yeah, 100%.
We were like, listen, we had the vending guy. Like, look, I need 40s in there. I know blunt paper. I need rolling paper. Yeah. I need everything in there. Newports. I need everything. This is what my crowd wants.
This is what we sold.
Yeah.
But everyone talks about that. We had blunts in the vending machine. It's such a funny thing.
Yeah, but I mean, even having the vending machine with the papers and everything, that's still part of it.
It was an herb-friendly studio.
Yeah,
we
were.
We came out of the reggae world. We both were smokers. We were advocates of legalization, and if you're a creative person and that's what you do, that's what you do. We did not let our employees smoke while they were on.
They snuck it, but our law was you weren't allowed to smoke. Right.
That's actually really good, you know, because most studios I go into, the engineer's the highest one in the room.
No, we weren't down with that. No. After the session, you sit chilling in the lounge playing a little pool.
No, I got a lot of respect for that, dude.
Man. And they were like, you guys are hypocrites. Because we became very friendly with our engineers as well.
Yeah.
But we're like, no, we're not. We're bosses, and this is the way it is.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you guys are
They'll
running
complain
a business.
to you if something goes wacky.
Yeah.
But the guys they were smoking, behind our backs, of course. You know what I mean?
Of course.
There was no way around it.
But the rule was they weren't supposed to smoke.
Yeah.
So the funny story is, during the 40s and Blunts party was that we were so crowded it was like this, so we couldn't even walk in the room, and we had everyone. Jazz was up there, and everyone was up there. So this guy comes to the front door and he's like, can I come to the party? And it was Jay-Z.
Insane.
I didn't let him in.
We love Jay-Z. He used to come to our studio all the time.
Yeah. We made a thing that, listen, no one else is coming in.
We can't let anyone else in. And so he took it maybe a little too far.
Yeah.
But how would he know?
I got to hear this. Yeah.
So, no, he came. He was alone. I said, Jay, it's just so crowded.
No, he wasn't alone. He had a few people.
As I remember, he was alone. Or maybe a person or two. He certainly wasn't rolling deep.
Yeah, no. But, And so we didn't let Jay-Z.
But he was so cool. He got it. And
then he came back and recorded.
Of course, he didn't hold it against me.
No, he doesn't remember. We spoke to him about it.
I saw him at a Knick game. We talked about it.
Yeah. That's super funny. Yeah, maybe we could talk about Jay for a little bit. Because from my understanding, from the first time he came into the studio, he was like, I want to get my album on the wall here.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, and it's insane how his career has transpired since then. What was it like working with a young Jay-Z?
Well, he was mad cool. He was a workhorse. I never saw Jay smoke once. He wasn't in there playing CeeLo. He wasn't in the lounge. He was a worker.
Yeah.
He was not fucking around, bro.
No.
He was that guy who was
also a legit guy. Like, just as a kid, I always remember like sitting in the lounge with him and just like straight shooter, no bullshit,
He's all about it.
All about it. And, he, Jazz-O, as you know now, but Big Jazz, he had the first deal on EMI, right? Was it EMI?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had the first. So
I don't know if it was the first deal, but yeah.
Yeah, he had one of the, right.
He had the song Hawaiian Soul.
And he brought Jay along on the ride, and Jay was his partner in crime on doing that. And they did music for us. We have 3 tracks that were never released, the 2 of them. Actually, it's 3 Jay-Z tracks that were never released.
Old school rhyming.
Old school, him doing the fast rhymes,
You wouldn't believe. It's so funny.
Yeah, but he was great. I mean, he was an awesome guy. And, over the years, we would produce music, and like my producers would use little pieces of Jay-Z in the song, scratching in, the whole repertoire. Kirk Gazelle, big shout out to QNC, Kirk Gazelle. And I said, Jay, and then we were getting played on radio. Red Alert played every day.
That's
and the song was big and on the ground. And I'm like, Jay, he was playing. I mean, they were all in the pool room. He goes, I heard that. He goes, I go, are we all right? He goes, we're very fine, no problem. I was like, I just never forget how he was like, he gave me like the thumbs up. You're good.
Yeah.
I'm like, Kurt, we're good. No.
And then Jay came in there and he did his whole Reasonable Doubt album, if I'm not
the whole album, but
most of it.
A good part of it.
Yeah. How was that when he was there working on that?
Oh, it was incredible. Guy's incredible on every level.
Yeah.
As a person, as just, the biggest guy in the world now, but back then, he's just humble and he's
get the work done. Get the work done. We'll go to before we go to the club, we're doing a song. After the club, we're coming back and do a song. He had Ski in Studio B. He had Primo in Studio B.
Ski was in
Ski
A.
and C.
Yeah.
No, he was in right. And then we had someone else in A doing it. He was like, they were taking all rooms. Dame was, he was wheeling and dealing with us. And we always used to joke that, it took him a while to pay us at the end. It was like, but like we financed the first Jay-Z album, basically.
Oh, amazing, guys.
Where's our royalty?
Yeah.
Jay.
and then he would come, like, we'd get to a point where he owed like whatever $5,000-$7,000, and I'd be like, "Damn, we're getting there." And he would literally come with a shoebox,
insane, dude.
with 5s, 10s, and singles.
Here you go.
Here you go.
Yeah. So at what point are you seeing the records from D&D Studio like hit a major level?
was our first gold record. And for me, the first one I remember hearing.
And then the second one,
Two in a Room, Wiggle It.
Yeah, Wiggle It was a big one for us. A little pre-hip hop is when freestyle was big. But right after that, our biggest record, one of our biggest records of all time from D&D was D-Like Groove. The whole album, but the song Groove Is in the Heart. Once we did that, I was like, dude, everywhere I'm going, I'm hearing this song. Every store I go in, every club I'm going in, I go, this record is huge, man.
How does that feel?
Interesting.
It was great. It was great.
I remember going to the Red Parrot for their album release party, and they did that album was all done at D&D. I think every track. I mean, they spent like
Q-Tip came in, the whole thing, do that track. Yeah.
Bootsy Collins, and they were a new group, so who knows. Then we went to the Red Parrot, and I saw that video. I was like, it's over, man. Yeah. This is the coolest shit I have ever seen.
It was amazing.
This is going to be a hit record, and to this day, I still hear it. It's one of the few songs.
It's like they consider it a top 10 dance song of all time.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. And actually the engineer, big shout out to Mike Rogers, who
Tweaking Rogers. He got the name Tweaking from that session.
He to this day he's getting clients from that record,
He's incredible.
He's
actually in Connecticut, guys. Hi, Mike. He's very close to us right now.
Let's go.
Yeah. He's Connecticut, right? Yeah. So he's an awesome guy, awesome engineer, and he did that record, and that was huge. So that was the first two big records, that were really, we had records that were out that we heard, but those two records really put us to another level.
Yeah.
Internationally, especially. Because I was working overseas as an engineer, and everyone would be like, yo, who did that record? It was like those records were huge for us.
Well, tell that story. We had a group called the Blow Monkeys who came to America and came to D&D. Great group.
That's awesome.
On RCA Records, yeah.
And then they loved Doug so much, when they went back to England, he left for 3 weeks, a month.
A year.
It was a year. My voice just went up. I don't remember it being that long,
it was like
bro.
it was one stay, and then I went back because I did another group called Wet Wet Wet.
Oh, that's right.
Which was the #1 album in London at the time. It was like they were like the Beatles there, and they're still to this day.
And so were the Blow Monkeys. They were huge
they're both
groups over there.
Two big groups, and I was It's no wonder why to now I'm not producing hip hop now, I'm producing pop music. It's no wonder why, because those were my roots, and that's what came back to me naturally. It was like, that's where I belong. As I love hip hop, I go, but I'm and I produce some hip hop and executive produce amazing records Dave and I did over the years. But I'm not a DJ.
I feel that too. Because I produce a lot of music, so I'm doing a lot of hip hop, but my heart's kind of in pop too. It's just the sound that
I think of you. That's how I think.
Yeah, when I listened to you, I heard pop. I heard pop with a little hip hop twinge in it.
It's kind of. But I want to get back and talk a little bit more about some of the artists.
Let's talk
about you. No. You guys are here. You know what I mean? But you guys had Big L at D&D Studios.
Always. Big L was a regular there. I mean, if there was one artist that I used to see there I didn't even know who he was at first until Dave Carpenter, big shout out Dave Carp. He was our studio manager, and he goes, "Did you ever meet Big L?" I'm like, "No." I go, "But I see her all the time."
Well, he was doing his album. He was in fact, he was there the day before he died. So he was there.
He was always
7 days a week.
Always. It was like but it was like it seemed like he was just always there.
Because besides the Big Al, he was digging in the crate. So anytime the digging in the crate guys were there, Diamond D, any of those guys, Buck, L was hanging around. Yeah. He was my favorite. I love
he the potential with this young guy was incredible.
His lyrical.
I watched stuff with him now. I'll see some of these freestyles that he does.
I just put up one 2 days ago.
Yeah, I saw it. It's so good.
He's unbelievable.
His flow was just
and what he
beautiful.
Says.
No, I've seen a lot of it too.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And we'll talk about it. I say everyone's the nicest guy. We were very blessed to have incredible clients that were like family. Most of them. There were some. But L was just such a nice
Tupac wasn't
guy.
shot at our studio. Just know that.
Right.
We pretty much had a mellow situation. People respected all of us.
Yeah, and
a couple of incidents.
But it kind of just goes back to the vibe. It seems like the vibe at D&D Studios was one that people wanted to be around.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and we had people. We had people. people knew who our people were.
Yeah, it was incredible.
peaceful.
It was
good.
incredible that you can go do a record in Studio A, and all of a sudden you're hopping on a song in Studio B, and vice versa. And it was just like you don't get that these days.
Yeah.
So you may get a lot of people coming to a studio for an artist, go to a studio and they got all those boys there, but you didn't have KRS-One in one room and Black Moon in the other room, or the Beat Miners or Smith and Wesson, and they all got into the lounge and they all built their relationship, and all of a sudden they're doing each other's songs. And
Insane.
to this day, I mean, it carried on from there to now.
Yeah. So you also had Fat Joe, from my understanding,
Sure.
in the studio too.
From when he was super young.
It's crazy.
If you look at 1 2 Pass It, the video, he's wearing my watch and he's in my Jaguar convertible.
Incredible,
Because
dude.
he didn't even have bling.
He had nothing. Yeah, he was just. But no, he had his record out.
Right, yeah. He was-
Flojo, whatever. I remember that. His record out with signed to Alan Grunblatt. I remember, and
Yeah, he had Big Pun. He was becoming the superstar.
he was. But he was a tough guy. I always loved Joe, but he caused a couple of issues here and there.
He's a real cat.
Yeah, he's a real cat. He wasn't backing down to anybody. And sometimes it caused some issues with. I think it was.
Frankie Gullick.
Yeah, him and Frankie, right? Frank.
We had to make sure they weren't booked. Like if Joe was coming, Frankie wasn't in B.
Yeah, we had to have separate sometimes. Well, really, Joe was one of the few, that we had
really
that issue.
the only
with.
one I remember.
Yeah, I mean,
But it was cool. Listen, he was who he was. And
and listen to this day, he's
he's
doing wonder.
fucking
He's amazing.
superstar,
So
man.
proud of him, man.
Oh,
It's amazing.
yeah.
what he done.
incredible.
You guys-
Also big help, and he was always back in D&D. And to this day, when he does his show, he does his verse from 1 2 Pass It.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers know who's the best. If it ain't Fat Joe, then it must be Lord Finesse. And he does that verse live. So
Yeah, I just think of all these artists too. You caught a lot of these artists early in their career, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
really grew.
we say
at
that we had a
D&D.
lot of their first records, Lost Boys. A lot of them, man. It was like their first records that broke.
The most classic records. And a lot of
M.O.P.
guys would move on. Oh, now we're going to go to SSL room and some expensive studio, and it didn't hit as much. Some did. I'm not saying that. Obviously Nas and Jay and the big guys. Yeah, they
but what
definitely moved
Jay
on.
said, we all from the ghetto, but I go back up to D&D on this Primo track because he did move on, but when he wanted that sound, he came back to
Back.
us.
So ghetto.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, and you said M.O.P. So
Yeah, they were just on Drink Champs last week, and they, all these years later, D&D, man, that was our shit, and those guys.
Because that was our family. That's where
They
we
are family.
Yeah.
First family. Lays comes
Yeah.
to my house to this day. I love Lays. I love those guys. Probably, up there with KRS-One, the best live hip hop you'll ever see is
Oh
M.O.P.
yeah, M.O.P. live is
It's like the last day on
slam
Earth,
jam
man.
for sure.
Oh, I'm getting a chill.
yeah, I mean, I haven't even seen it. I'm
Oh,
getting a
but-
chill,
but-
dude. I
but
can't
their
imagine.
song,
Forget about it.
I know the records though.
The record is right now they have
Ante
Ante Up is probably it's on
anthem.
every football game. I mean it's played. I hear it 5 times a week on TV. Amazon used it.
Yeah,
I
last
mean,
Christmas,
Yeah,
Amazon,
I mean
I
it
was
was
so happy
unbelievable.
for
That
them.
song has life. God bless them. They
Timeless
cash in on that.
record,
Yeah,
dude.
it's a timeless
Timeless
record.
record.
And
And
that
they're
record was
talking about
done
us now.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
yeah,
But it sounds like it's it's pumping and everyone's getting all,
yeah.
But big up to those guys
Yeah,
and all the guys
totally.
at Drink Champs and yeah, man.
And Biggie was in the
Nori.
studio too.
Yeah. Of
That's
course.
insane, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
I know that you guys have a plaque for Ready to Die.
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
It's sold enough and we got a black.
Yeah,
But listen, it was based. I mean, Dave knows more about what happened during the sessions. He was there, but it was more about Puffy realizing that all right, I got the commercial area covered. I need to get the underground, and who do you go to? DJ Premier, and that was the balance he had. So whatever was the A side, Juicy. B was what was the B side? Kicking the door, waving the 4-4.
Yep.
And so it was. We were always the B side. So all of a sudden, really, I think that almost defined us truly as the B-side studio. We were like really the B-side, you know, because rap was making a change now. So now Puffy introduced, you know, singing hooks and, you know, so getting to pop radio as opposed to just being on hip-hop shows. Now all of a sudden underground rap was, you know, more, it was the street.
Yeah.
It wasn't being the popular. It was for many years, but then it started to progress.
Yeah.
And that's when there were singles, A-sides, and B-sides, which is funny.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, you're talking like records, like, because I have a bunch of 45s and stuff like that.
So the B-side, they always push the A-side, but they put up.
But then the B-side, well, that's what happened with Jay.
Yeah.
Ain't No was the B-side. Dead Prez was the A-side.
Yeah.
All the money went into Dead Prez. The
Yeah.
video, radio promotion, you know, back in the day they had in-store promotion. It all went to that, but that shows if a song has a life of its own.
Those were the days. I remember being at the club when that song, when we all realized like, oh shit, everyone went nuts. The song went on. Everyone, I go, this is the song right now. You can hear it.
That summer, talk to every cab, every barbershop, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
That was amazing. But it was the B-side.
Which is insane, too.
And they didn't clear the sample because it was the B-side.
Yeah.
Because they didn't think
20
it
minutes
would,
smoke, right?
Yeah.
Did you run into a lot of issues with samples and
Sure.
samples clearance? Yeah, I believe it, dude. Because I mean,
We didn't have issues but we knew the seriousness of it all.
There
When
were
we had
issues
our
out there
record
for
deals,
real.
we had budgets for that. Like when we went with Arista, we said, look, you got to have, you know, these guys are going to sample. This is what's going on, and we had to clear everything.
A big piece of the budget would go to clear samples.
yeah.
But certainly clients in general, we certainly saw a lot of issues with samples.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean the biggest, most famous one is Primo, 10 Crack Commandments.
Oh, wow. What happened there?
It
Chuck
was
D.
it was actually a skit.
It was a promo that
skit.
they did for Angie Martinez or something, and I don't have the real story, so I don't want to say it, but I know they resolved it, and I know Chuck and Primo are all cool now.
Yeah, but at the moment,
it wasn't.
Primo was
something-
like, "What the fuck is this? It's hip hop."
Yeah, he took this right, and because when you're in that little mix and you're using someone's record, you're not going after. Like,
Especially
on Jay's
Primo.
record, they use 1, 2, pass it. You know, we're not gonna, you know.
Yeah.
But you know that's what it was about, and you know I guess you know Chuck was, you know, his career was kind of like, you know, it was 90s hip hop. His music was dying out a little bit. Of course, he's still a legend to this day. Yeah, let's cash in. Let's try to make a settlement on this. Yeah, and you can't blame him. Also, you know.
Yeah.
I was actually in the studio when Biggie spit that.
Wow.
Yeah,
What was that experience like?
it's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. Yeah,
I can't even imagine.
yeah.
You guys also.
But again, it was a skit, and he just loved it so much that he's like, "Nah, we got to go with this." So.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
He's Biggie was. I mean, you look at them as legends now, but they were kids in their prime. They
That's
were
what I'm
like
saying,
at their
like-
creative juices were flowing. You know, it's like these guys, a guy like him and Jay, they weren't even writing the stuff down. They were just going on the mic and go, "Okay, here, let's go, roll tape."
Yeah, you guys have a perspective that most don't have because, you know, you said it, like most people look at these artists like legends, but you guys caught them so early in their career. I saw even Eminem was there with, he was there.
Tony Touch.
With Tony Touch, dude.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
Tony, and big shout out Tony Touch, of course. Tony was. He brought everyone else to the studio. So, like, we had all our clients, but then he would do the 50 MCs,
So
and 100 MCs would come by.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
50, 100, and our studio would be like, whereas Tony's in Studio A and Studio B and Studio C, you take whole place, and he'd be doing all these freestyles.
Yeah, little skits.
All these skits, and all of a sudden, like, you know, we'd see clients like, you know, Redman, who never recorded with us, or Nori, you know, all these guys were coming by, and they, you know, and they have their fond memories of D&D, and they speak about it to this day. You know, some good, some not so good. You know.
Yeah. How much do you think word of mouth ended up being like a factor in people coming to the studio? Mostly.
There was no promotion.
We didn't have
no Insta.
like
There
a
was no
marketing
Twitter.
budget.
There was nothing. There was no even Village Voice that time. We were not. There's nowhere to
At that point,
advertise.
we stopped.
There was no reason. Yeah. It was all word of mouth. Everything, and it was word of mouth internationally.
Yeah.
And
So-
we had the labels as clients. So
That's
once
true.
Yeah.
the labels,
kinda get their
know,
network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They saw
Yeah.
Junior Mafia in there, so the next session they didn't. Oh, okay, I'm going to book D&D.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm making sure I saw this right, but you watched over Fred Durst's Bulldog?
yeah,
How was that?
Listen, I got Bulldogs. It was,
I know.
It was
easy.
incredible.
It was easy for you.
I do that every day. And that's still, to this day, one of my favorite songs that was done there. And that's one I still hear on the radio all the time.
Yeah.
Method Man, what a great song and so much fun, yeah.
And pulling it back to Jamaica a little bit, Peter Tosh would come to D&D too. That probably felt pretty full circle.
Yeah, Peter came right before he left for Jamaica. Then he was dead in 2 or 3 days.
Oh my
gosh! In fact, that picture of me and him in D&D.
I saw that.
I say it's probably one of the last pictures of him ever. Because literally he was killed 48 hours later.
That's crazy.
And again, we had Augustus Pablo, the Heptones. We did a lot of Dennis Brown.
D. Brown did a great record. Also did
Goldfinger. We had a lot of great.
We had a lot of clients that weren't famous. You know what I mean? But were money machines for us. You know what I mean? They would just come in and spend money. We had the guy who wrote "The Tide Is High." What was his name again? He was great.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
What's a story from D&D Studios that someone might not know? That like something that you guys can think of that maybe just a silly story or something?
Tell them the M.O.P. Was it they called you or they called me the M.O.P. story when I remember them calling me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Billy and the Fame, they were recording in Studio B. I don't know with the Primo or somebody. I don't remember the record, but he had this. I guess it was a watch.
It was a watch.
Yeah, it was a watch, and he was wearing this watch, and he took it off and put it down. And gets to do his rhyme, and he came back. The watch was gone.
Wow.
And this is Billy.
Now, Billy in his day, these guys
real
were
cats, man.
They're real
Put it
street
like that.
cats, man. And I remember it was like 2 a.m. getting a phone call from the manager, probably Paul at the time, and he goes, "Doug, Billy wants to talk to you." He'll go, "Oh, okay." So I'm like in bed. I'm sleeping. I'm out cold. Okay.
Because usually they call me because that was more of my role.
Billy, what's up? He goes, "Doug, I'm locking the doors." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I go, "I'm locking the doors. My watch is missing. I'm not letting anybody leave." I remember saying, "Billy, do what you got to do, bro."
Crazy, dude.
Right, so do what you got to do, and ended up being one of the assistant engineers. Got a little sticky with his fingers.
Oh no! So how do you guys handle that?
We didn't. He handled it.
The guy that we never saw him.
Never saw him again. He beat. I don't know. They had a little problem between the two of them, and that was that. But he got his watch back, and that was that.
That's crazy.
But another funny one, just to go back a few years before that, was this guy. You tell him the story. You know where I'm going with this?
Fat Boys?
Yes.
Yeah. So I had my wedding ring on, and I used to take it off to wash my hands, and it was gone.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, fuck, man. So, all right, listen. A couple days later, I walk in Studio A. One of the Fat Boys, Marky D, is playing the DX7, and he's got my ring on his finger.
Insane, dude.
I'm like, bro, that's my ring. He goes, oh, I found it. He goes, the rings never fit me. I put it on, it fit me. I go, cool, let me have it back.
Boys.
All right, all good.
Yeah.
That's so silly.
But they were actually our first big rap client.
Yes,
of all,
big
yeah,
out.
Yeah,
we love those
Charles
guys.
Stetler to this
Charlie
day
Stetler,
is
we talk to
awesome.
all the time.
Yeah, Charlie's great and
amazing.
He brought a lot of work
guy.
with us. But the Fat Boys, that's when I was engineering. That's how old that is. Because at some point, I was done engineering. I couldn't hang with everyone. I just said, give it to the kids, let them learn, and let's move on. Let's grow the company and build our record company and our production company, and we had pretty much good success with that after.
Yeah, at that point we became a label, and
Yeah.
But yeah, I walk in, I'm like, oh, sorry, bro.
That's bad. Can we talk about DJ Mark, the 45 King?
Of course.
How did you guys originally connect?
He came as a client.
But what was the actual? Was it through DA?
No, I don't know if that was a coincidence. Maybe.
I think it was.
Dave, a dear friend of ours, lived in his building, and they became very close. I don't remember if that
I think it was.
Might be.
It was. There was no other, because he was on his own island.
Yeah,
He was on his own island. 45 King. He was already, post. Latifah and all that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like,
Well, Louis and him were very close.
Louis.
Too. Might have been through Louis,
Yeah.
but Mark and I became real over the last 10 years. Not so much at D&D, but yeah, I gotta say he was one of my best friends in life.
Yeah.
We spoke every day. He's one.
God rest his soul.
I know.
I know. I
peace.
say nice
Love
things about
Marcus.
everyone, but he was just.
Mark was our guy. He was a good guy.
I can't explain.
And his impact on hip hop was
missed the shit out of him
tremendous.
every day.
I wish he could have seen the love,
Me
the
too.
outpouring of love that happened after he died, because he did not believe that people liked and respected him. And after he died, it just all came out. And from Jay-Z writing a full-page letter to everyone,
Latifah, everyone.
everybody just showed up and showed respect. And I really wish you could have seen that.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, his impact is huge. Like, me as a producer, like Hard Knock Life is like one of the reasons I got into production. You know what I mean? So
He had such a unique take on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that no one had.
Yeah.
Because of his age, because of his background. And like he would sample something from a 1970 commercial. I mean, he just had such a amazing view of music and life. And
Yeah.
one of the smartest, funniest, wittiest. Organized
Like
beyond.
That's
go
hard
in his
skill sometimes in
studio,
music.
going in his studio. I remember we had D&D invited me to his apartment, and he had this studio. He had a phone booth in there, and he had this the subway turnstile, and all these things. But everything was just perfectly in. He had
It was a place for everything.
Yeah, and he had,
everything in its
I
place.
print my label. Here's a printer machine here, and then I do this over here, and everything was just like the most perfect setup. Like, man, I want to make D&D like this, man.
Yeah. He was very, he had a schedule or what he was going to do that day
very,
from
very
10 to 12. I'm doing,
Yeah. And the 900 number too was insane, dude.
Beyond, yeah.
The impact that has on hip hop, like you hear it everywhere, dude.
everywhere. It's probably the most prolific.
Yeah, I mean,
hip-hop
like you go to a
ever.
sports game, you're gonna hear that,
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, he was just, just so funny, so smart. You had to get him. A lot of people didn't get him, and because he was very honest, very deadpan. But if you got him and you knew him, there was no one.
Well, we
better.
had a great run on Clubhouse. I guess during COVID, Dave and I started this D&D
Lounge.
The D&D Lounge. So 45 King was one of our regular people on there. He was like one of the hosts. And
So great.
he was just so crazy.
He loved it. That was a highlight for him because he did get some flowers. People were like, Mark, what are you talking about? You're a fucking god.
Yeah.
And he really opened up, and it was just so special.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I want to give him a little flowers too because he also produced "Stan" by Eminem, which is an incredible record. And I wanted, if people
Just
listen
those
to this,
3 songs, 900 number. I mean,
It's
That's a
insane.
career right there. But
that's just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
You
He
know?
was the founder of the Flavor Unit. So many things.
Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you guys about, in 2003, you guys sold D&D to Premiere.
Well, we didn't really say. It just kind of went in. We were done, and
He
It was a tough time for Dave and I at that moment. We things were changing. So Pro Tools came out, and a lot of the budgets were going. The clients were just buying Pro Tools and recording in their house, maybe coming to mix with us. So that dug into our business. Then everyone.
the 9/11.
9/11 hit, and that was devastating for us. And New York was like empty. And Napster. But Napster
crazy.
was a killer because now everyone's downloading music for free. So all of a sudden we saw Raucus, we saw Tommy Boy, everyone going out of business. All the labels closing up there. There's independent labels in Manhattan closing up. Those were our clients. So the writing was the only true, real, best client we had was DJ Premier. And he was doing the Gang Starr record, Moment of Truth? What was the last record before they?
It wasn't. It was the Owners. I'm not sure.
All right, so it was like the last record that him and Guru did together, and Primo was he came, he didn't come, everyone was waiting around. It was like a weird time for everybody. I think everyone was just going through some crazy. Him and Guru were a little bit not on the same page, and a lot of things were going on, and the beat miners who were huge clients of ours, they weren't coming.
Duck down.
Duck down. They weren't getting sessions. They weren't doing as much. What they were doing at home wasn't really clear at the moment, but just a lot of weird stuff going on, and people weren't. So the place was kind of slow and empty, and we were like, "What happened?" It's like we had this whole thing going beautifully,
I wish more people would use analog now, too, because there's just a certain sound
course,
and warmth that you get from analog that digital just
It's coming
can't.
back a little, just like vinyl's coming back a
Yeah,
little.
but it's amazing how they made such great records on analog. Where like today you do digital, it's really it's not easy, but
Certainly
it's
easier.
so convenient for what you can do, and you can have 20 delays and whatever you want you can have. And back then you had to really think what you were doing and how were you getting things in time and moving things
and limitations of tracks.
Exactly.
Now it's unlimited.
So
bouncing vocals, I mean, it's a whole different thing there.
it was like a lot, and again, like we said before, a lot of our clients already had their first and second records, and all of a sudden they were, well, we're going to the Hit Factory, or we're going to the Power Station, or whatever. I'm like, okay, and so we lost a lot of our clients, and the labels weren't putting the same amount of money into the records anymore. So what was once maybe a $350,000-$500,000 budget, it was like $100 now. So the guy, the producer would say to himself, I'm just going to go buy a computer in Pro Tools and do my record here and figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of them did that. And
we did a lot of remixes, and that business went away.
that business went away.
There used to be remix budgets, $10,000, $12,000.
Yeah.
It went to nothing.
Nothing. And there was no, like when we went from, dance, and then we went to reggae, and then we went to hip hop, there was no next. Where was the next thing? There was no next thing because the way music was being distributed was being changed. All right, because don't forget now, so CDs and where are they? Everything's gone from that one was back then. No more cassettes, nothing like that. And retail in general. I mean, retail. We used to go. We love going to Tower Records and go to stores.
Yeah,
all
Tower Records
gone. You know
Mom
what I
and
mean?
Pops were our biggest.
all the mom and pops.
We used to do Freestyle Fridays. We used to take Craig G and go around to Mom and Pops.
Yeah, when we
promote stuff and.
No one would show up. It was
They were
empty.
gone. The
Everyone,
records were gone. The stores weren't even there to do it anymore.
Yeah, it was.
Just
It was
everything
really
changed.
changing, and we ended up getting a really nice record deal or distribution deal with Red Distribution, and we had finance, and we had all this money. It was like even though things were really weird, we had all this money to make these records. And it was just a weird time, man. Like, it's like all of a sudden it kind of hit a wall. What are we doing here? And it became tough to pay the bills. So we couldn't survive.
It was kind of dead for a while in general, and now there's this big rebirth. But, there was a lot of stagnant years.
Yeah. And then it finally shut the doors in the top of 2015. How did that feel after
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, I believe it, guys.
No. 2015, that was when Premiere closed Headquarters.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Headquarters.
Oh, let's go.
Headquarters are
Came correct.
What do you
What
want?
am I don't even know.
Oh!
I had no idea.
Dude, guys.
I didn't even when you showed it. I didn't even
That's
realize what I put on.
crazy.
All right. No idea.
No idea. Zero idea.
Dave, that's beautiful.
That's funny.
That's
Look at
actually
that.
That's
a
how you know
moment.
your friends.
That's a
That's
moment.
crazy.
Okay, that's a
We're
moment
beyond
right
friends,
there. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's too much. I can't believe it. I actually thought I imagine Dave wore this shirt also.
It never occurred
I pulled
to
it
me.
out last second. I was going
Even
to
when you were wearing it, it didn't. I just looked over. It didn't occur to
The
me.
only thing would have been crazier is if I had these
Yeah,
clothes and then
yeah.
I opened it too.
Yeah,
been
well,
great.
it is.
No, it's awesome, guys.
That's great. It was a rough time for us, man. We didn't know what to do with ourselves. We had to reinvent ourselves, and
That's why he kind of went out of music for a while.
Yeah.
I stayed in, and now he's back and
I
as an
completely-
incredible artist and doing his thing. We're working on some D&D stuff. It's
that's the future for the new
it's a-
year.
it's a
We
good
really
time.
got a documentary that we're
heard
trying to
about the doc.
finalize that up, and we're
talking
trying
about
to do
another D&D
another
project.
album.
Awesome.
And people are it's a rebirth of that moment, and we're part of that. We're still young. We're still active. We still love music. We're still
and we've been in it. We're deeply in touch with our old clients, and we're fans. We go to shows.
Yeah, and one thing when I
do it.
met you, David, that was something that stood out to me is that one thing that you really valued is your reputation. And you have an incredible reputation
you.
where you can make these things happen, you know?
Thank you, yeah.
I guess my question to you guys is, you know, the documentary's coming, but what's next for you guys?
Well, the documentary, possibly another D&D project. You know, we again, we're dear friends. We, as time goes, we think of things. Again, he's an incredible artist.
Yeah, and I got a place. I got a business I run, and he's got his own thing going on. So we have our separate things, but we're, you know, we have our family life, we have our main business, and we have our D&D life, you know, and like D&D life has kind of been put on sort of hold somewhat, you know, but because the opportunities really aren't there and we're not about to spend a lot of time doing it, but we see opportunities coming up now and people are reaching out to us. So we're hopeful that in the new year that you'll be hearing great things from us.
Let's go, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you. You're such a talented.
Yes, very
you
much
know,
so.
I was like, Doug, this guy's great. He goes, I know, Mike. You know, we're
I've
friends
been
on
following you, right?
Yeah. So we appreciate you, and yeah, man.
I want to end today's episode like how I end a lot of my episodes, with my thought of the day. And my thought today is that your network is your net worth. The people that you keep around and hang around you are the people that are going to help you grow and level up. If you're hanging around a bunch of bums in your life, I'm sorry to say this, but you're gonna become a bum most likely. But if you're surrounded by winners, people that are motivated, people that just have that ambition, that motivation to keep going, you're more likely to succeed. So be careful, watch your circle, and make sure that you're getting out there in the open, you know, networking, meeting people, because more opportunities will come your way the more people you know. And like I always say, you have to believe in yourself before the world does.